Most people using red light therapy for hair growth are doing it wrong, and that's exactly why they're not seeing results, because this isn't just a pretty red light. This is photobiomodulation, a cellular level intervention that directly affects your follicles. But here's the problem: no one is explaining how it actually works on your scalp. So today I'm breaking it down like a trichologist, not like marketing. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dulcia Caro. I'm a trichologist specialist passionate about scalp health, hair care, and helping people better understand the root causes of hair and scalp concerns. I also hold a master's degree in public health and a background in integrated nutrition. And by the end of this video, you will understand how red light actually stimulates hair growth, why some devices work and others don't, the exact way to use it for results, and whether this is even right for your type of hair loss. Because yes, this can absolutely improve density, thickness, and shedding, but only under very specific biological conditions. So let's actually talk about what red light therapy is, because I feel like online people either make it sound like magic or they explain it in a way that sounds so scientific that nobody understands it. So let me simplify it for you. Red light therapy, also called low-level light therapy, uses a specific wavelength of light to stimulate activity inside your hair follicles. And no, it is not just shining a red light on your scalp. There's actually biology behind this. What happens is that these wavelengths, usually in the red light ranges, are around 630 to 660 nanometers, penetrate into your scalp and interact with your cells. And the area we really care about is the hair follicle itself, especially a part called the bulge area. That's important because the bulge contains stem cells that help regulate hair growth. So when people say red light stimulates hair growth, what they really mean is it helps create a better environment for the follicle to function. Think of it like this: if your follicle is stressed, inflamed, sluggish, low energy, red light therapy is basically trying to improve the follicle's working conditions. It's helping support cellular energy production, circulation, and signaling pathways involved in growth. And this is why consistency matters so much, because you're not forcing the hair to grow overnight. You're supporting the biology that allows healthier growth over time. And honestly, this is why I find this technology so interesting, because unlike a lot of trendy hair products that only sit on the surface, this is targeting what's happening deeper inside the follicle itself. Now let's get into the part that made me personally take this technology seriously, because I will be honest, the first time I heard that a red light helmet could help with hair growth, I was very skeptical. Like, how is light supposed to grow hair? But once you understand the mechanism, it actually starts making sense. So here's what's happening. Inside your cells, you have mitochondria, and mitochondria are basically the energy producers of the cell. They create ATP, which is cellular energy. Now, red light at a specific wavelength can stimulate an enzyme inside the mitochondria called cytochrome C oxidase. I know that sounds very science heavy, but stay with me because this part matters. When that enzyme gets stimulated, it helps increase energy production inside the follicle. And follicles need a lot of energy because hair growth is actually a very metabolically active process. Your follicles are constantly dividing, regenerating, producing keratin. So if the follicle environment is weak, inflamed, stressed, or underpowered, hair quality starts declining. This is where red light therapy may help, because the stimulation can lead to increased ATP production, improved circulation, better oxygen delivery, and reduce inflammation in the scalp environment. And over time, this may help encourage follicles to stay longer in the growth phase, which is called the anagen phase. And that's important because one of the biggest issues in androgenic hair loss is that the growth phase becomes shorter and shorter over time. So the hair starts coming in thinner, weaker, finer, until eventually the follicles miniaturizes. And what red light therapy is trying to do is support the follicle before that process progresses farther. Now, I do want to say something important here. This does not mean red light therapy can magically revive follicles that are completely dead or scarred. That's where expectations need to be realistic, but for follicles that are weakened, miniaturized, dormant, or struggling, this is where we may start seeing improvements in density, thickness, and shedding over time. Okay, but this is the part nobody talks about. Red light therapy is not a miracle cure for every type of hair loss, and I think social media has really confused people on this, because online you will see someone put on an LED helmet or hat for 2 weeks and suddenly claim my hair grew back, and that's just not how hair biologically works. So let's clear up a few myths. First, red light therapy does not instantly regrow hair. This is not like flipping a switch. Hair follicles work in cycles, and those cycles take time. So if someone expects dramatic regrowth in 10 days, they're probably going to be disappointed. Second, not every type of hair loss responds the same way. This tends to work better for androgenic alopecia, early thinning, miniaturizing follicles, meaning follicles that are still alive but struggling. Now, if someone has severe scarring alopecia, advanced fibrosis, or follicles that are no longer functional, red light therapy alone is probably not going to create a dramatic transformation. And this is exactly why getting the correct diagnosis matters, because treating the wrong type of hair loss is one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. And third, more not always is better. This one surprises people, but with photobiomodulation, there's something called biphasic response, meaning too little stimulation has no effect and too much stimulation can actually become inhibitory. So wearing the helmet for hours every day is not necessarily helping you more. Consistency matters more than overdoing it, and honestly, this is why I always tell my patients, don't approach it emotionally, approach it biologically, because when you understand what the follicles actually need, you stop chasing gimmicks and start focusing on long-term scalp health. Now let's talk about something that it's really important. Not all red light devices are the same, and this is where a lot of people get confused because everything online gets grouped together as LED therapy. But there are actually major differences between devices. Some use only LED lights, some others use laser, and some combine both technologies. So what's the difference? LED light is more diffuse, it spreads over a broader area, and lasers are more focused and concentrated, which allows for deeper penetration. And when we are talking about hair follicles, which sits deeper in the scalp, that distinction matters. And that's why many of the higher-end hair growth devices combine both LED and laser technology. Now, another thing that matters is wavelength, because just a device that glows red doesn't actually mean it is therapeutic. And as I mentioned before, the research around hair growth tends to focus on wavelengths roughly in the 630 to 660 nanometers range. That range appears to interact best with the cellular pathways involved in photobiomodulation. So don't buy a device just because it is trending. Look at the wavelength, diode count, consistency of coverage, FDA clearance, and whether the company actually provides technical specifications. Because unfortunately, there are a lot of devices on the market right now that are more marketing than science. And another thing people don't think about enough is coverage. A small comb device may still provide benefit, but helps and hats tend to give more consistent scalp coverage with less user error, meaning you are more than likely to actually use it correctly and consistently. And with hair growth, consistency is everything, because honestly, even the best technology won't help much if someone uses it for 1 week and then forgets about it for the next month. That's why I personally care less about hype and more about realistic use, compliance, and long-term consistency. Now, this part is probably one of the biggest reasons people don't get results, because with red light therapy, more is not always better. And I really want people to understand this. A lot of people think if 10 minutes helps, then 45 minutes must be amazing. But photobiomodulation doesn't work like that. Remember the biphasic dose response. too little stimulation equals not enough effect, and too much stimulation can actually reduce effectiveness. So the goal is not to blast your scalp with as much light as possible. The goal is to hit the therapeutic window consistently. And this is why device quality and protocol matter so much, because the studies on low-level light therapy tend to use very specific patterns, specific wavelengths, specific treatment times, specific frequencies. Most protocols are somewhere around 10 to 20 minute sessions, daily or every other day, and long-term consistency. And honestly, this is where people lose patience, because hair growth is slow, very slow. Follicles do not care that you want results before summer. Hair biology works on its own timeline. So if someone uses a device consistently for 2 weeks and then says red light therapy doesn't work, that doesn't really tell us much, because most studies show visible improvements are looking at maybe 12 weeks, 16 weeks, and sometimes even 6 months or longer. You don't need to obsessively overcomplicate this, and a lot of people get stuck trying to find the perfect protocol when consistency is usually more important than perfection. So instead of asking, shall I use this 14 minutes or 17 minutes, the better question is, can I realistically stay consistent with this in long term? Because that's what actually predicts results. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually use red light therapy correctly, because application matters more than people realize. First, use it on a relatively clean scalp, and the reason is simple. You want as little interference as possible between the light and the scalp itself. So if the scalp is covered in heavy oils, thick product buildup, dense styling products, that can potentially affect penetration. Now, does your hair need to be perfectly washed every single time? No, I want to be realistic here, but ideally you don't want layers and layers of product sitting on the scalp before treatment. Second, consistency matters more than intensity. This is not a treatment where you use it 3 times in 1 week, disappear for a month, and expect dramatic results. Hair follicles respond to repeated signaling over time. So whether your device recommends daily use or every other day use, the key is maintaining that routine long term. Think of this more like going to the gym for your follicles. One workout won't change your body overnight, but repeated stimulation over time creates adaptation, and hair follicles behave very similarly. Now, another question I get a lot is, shall I use my scalp serums or treatments before or after red light therapy? Personally, I prefer red light first, topical treatments after, because I want the scalp as unobstructed as possible during the treatment. Then afterwards, you can apply topical treatments, growth serums, peptides, etc. And honestly, this is where combination therapy becomes really powerful, because red light therapy works through a completely different mechanisms than something like topical treatments. So instead of competing with each other, they can actually complement each other. And one more thing I really want to emphasize, please do not expect to feel this like very dramatic. You're probably not going to feel your follicles growing. You're not going to wake up one morning with instant thick hair like Rapunzel. A lot of the changes happen gradually: less shedding, improved texture, better density over time, healthier looking hair overall. And usually the people who get the best results are the people who stay patient and consistent long enough to let biology respond. Now let's talk about timelines. And I really want to take my time explaining this, because this is probably one of the biggest disconnects people have with hair growth treatments. Most people want to know, how long until I see results? And the honest answer is, hair growth takes time, a long time, a lot more time than social media makes it seem. Because remember, your follicles are working through biological cycles, and those cycles are slow, very slow. So usually the first thing people may notice is actually less shedding, improved scalp quality, hair feeling a little stronger or healthier. And that can happen within the first several weeks. But visible density, that takes longer. Most studies on low-level light therapy start measuring meaningful visible changes around 12 to 16 weeks. And even then, sometimes what we're seeing first are tiny baby hairs beginning to emerge, not dramatic waist-length hair overnight. And honestly, this is why so many people quit too early, because the biology may already be improving internally, but they stop because the cosmetic changes don't become that obvious. I also want people to understand that results are not always dramatic regrowth. Sometimes success looks like slowing progression, maintaining density, reducing miniaturization, improving hair quality over time, and in the world of hair loss, that actually matters a lot because stabilizing follicles early can make a huge difference long term. Now, if someone has very advanced thinning or follicles that have been miniaturizing for many years, results may be more modest. And I think setting realistic expectations is extremely important. This is support for the follicle environment, not instant reversal of every stage of hair loss. So when people ask me, does red light therapy work? My answer is usually it can absolutely help the right person if they use it consistently, early enough, and long enough. Red light therapy works best when it is part of a bigger strategy because hair loss is usually multifactorial, meaning there is rarely just one thing happening. You can have hormonal influences, inflammation, nutrient deficiency, stress, scalp dysfunction, poor circulation, miniaturization, all happening at the same time. So expecting one single treatment to completely solve everything is usually unrealistic. And this is why combination therapy tends to give the best outcomes because different treatments target different pathways. For example, minoxidil works differently than red light therapy. Minoxidil helps support blood flow and prolong the growth phase through its own mechanisms. And red light therapy works through photobiomodulation and cellular energy support. So instead of competing, they can actually complement each other really well. And this is also why I always look at the scalp holistically because if someone is iron deficient, severely stressed, under eating protein, inflamed, dealing with hormonal imbalances, we can't ignore those things and expect one device to carry the entire burden. This is also where scalp health becomes really important because follicles thrive in healthy environment. So I'm always thinking about inflammation buildup, microbiome balance, circulation, overall scalp function, and honestly, sometimes improving the scalp environment alone can change how hair behaves. Now, another reason I really like red light therapy as part of a routine is because it's generally very easy to combine with other treatments. For many people, it layers really well with minoxidil, growth serum, peptide treatments, scalp therapies, nutrition support, in-office procedures. And for people who cannot tolerate certain medications, this may also be a helpful support option to include. But again, I don't look at this as a magic standalone fix. I look at it as one tool inside of a comprehensive hair growth strategy. And usually the best results happen when we stop asking what's the one miracle product and start asking how do I create the healthiest possible environment for my follicles long term. So what's my final opinion on red light therapy for hair growth? I do think this technology is promising, and more importantly, I think the science behind it actually makes biological sense because we're not just talking about random beauty marketing here. We're talking about cellular energy production, circulation, inflammation modulation, follicle support, and growth cycle regulation. And those are all the things that absolutely matter when we're talking about hair health. Now, with that said, I also think expectations need to stay realistic because this is not a miracle overnight transformation device. And honestly, I think that mindset is part of the reason people become disappointed with hair treatments in general. Hair growth is slow, hair recovery is gradual. And consistency matters more than intensity. So if someone is expecting instant density, dramatic regrowth in a few weeks, one device to completely reverse years of thinning, that's probably not realistic. But if someone catches thinning early, stays consistent, uses a quality device, combines it with a comprehensive routine, then yes, I absolutely think red light therapy can become a valuable part of a hair growth protocol. And honestly, one of the things I personally like most about this technology is that it's non-invasive. You're not dealing with recovery downtime. You're not forcing aggressive trauma on the scalp. You're supporting follicle function in a gentler, biologically supportive way. And for many people, that's really appealing. And at the end of the day, the goal is not perfection. The goal is healthier follicles, better scalp function, and slowing the progression of thinning before it advances farther. Because when you understand your hair biology early, you give yourself far more options long term. So if this video helped you finally understand how red light therapy actually works for hair growth, make sure you subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content I create here. Evidence-based hair, scalp, and skin education explained in a way that actually makes sense. And if you know someone struggling with thinning, shedding, or hair loss, send them this video, because honestly, there's so much misinformation online about hair growth right now, and understanding the biology changes everything. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!